Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's presentations, Unlock Referrals, Grow Your Private Practice with LinkedIn. My name is Christiana Ghazi. I'm really excited to share the next 45 minutes to an hour with you talking about LinkedIn. So, we all have busy days, hard stops. So I'm going to go ahead and get started sharing my screen here and we will jump into it. Everyone is muted. If you could just stay muted just for the sake of no audio disturbance during the presentation, that would be wonderful. This is being recorded, as I'm sure LinkedIn told you or Zoom told you when you logged in. And I'll be sure to send out a link to the recording after the presentation, along with a couple of other links that I think might be interesting to you. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen here. I do have the chat open, so if you have any questions or anything comes up, just pop those in the chat and I'll do my best to manage that. All right. Should be good to go here. All right. All right. So again, welcome. Thank you for joining me today. I know maybe for some of us coming back after the long Labor Day weekend, hopefully everyone that was able to have a long weekend enjoyed it. It can be somewhat of a rough transition coming back. So I appreciate you taking this time with me today. So a little bit about me before we kind of jump into the content for today. So my name is Christiana. I am a fellow registered dietitian. I'm based in the state of Connecticut, and I own and operate an insurance-based private practice. Most of my clients I sort of specialize in renal. So most of my clients have some form of kidney disease. And they take a plant forward nutrition approach to that, as well as, a mix of cardiac patients and conditions like that. But I really enjoy working within that sort of, renal, cardiac, metabolic, trifecta, if you will. And then before I transition into private practice, and I actually still have one foot in this world doing this part-time while my practice grows, is within corporate wellness and food service management. So I work for Compass Group. This presentation has nothing to do with Compass Group, but I specialize in sort of nutrient analysis, menu analysis, and had a background in culinary arts, which, I enjoy working in food service management, and it's cool to be able to still do that a bit, while my practice grows. I am a second career dietitian, so I come to dietetics with a background in organizational psychology, and organizational psych is essentially the study of how people behave within organizational settings. So that could be, within groups, could be within teams, and also how kind of individuals operate within organizations. And I'm really passionate about a lot of those topics. I mean, well, my ultimate goal is to grow my practice into a group practice where I can incorporate a lot of those principles into my management style. But that's, still building. But one thing that I like to do right now is I've created this community called How Dietitians Work, where we can have conversations about kind of that flow of how dietitians actually get work done and identify, areas of opportunity for dietitians that might be thinking about transitioning into leadership roles, and that kind of thing. And one thing that I'm really passionate about is career development, being a second career dietitian myself. And one thing that has been really helpful for me as I've not only changed careers to become a dietitian, but also pivoting from that corporate wellness, food service management into private practice, is using LinkedIn. to grow my career and my business. And so that is what I do. I talk about LinkedIn for dietitians, and that's what this talk is going to be about today. I do have a couple of things, special offers to share with you that I will talk about throughout, but really this isn't a sales pitch for anything. This is really a presentation that I want you to get value from. All right. So I did in the chat, hopefully you can see the chat. I did share the link to my LinkedIn group. I think we're like 350 members strong now. It's called Grow Your Nutrition Career. And really what it is an opportunity for dietitians and RDs to be credentialed nutrition professionals, et cetera, to find cool jobs and networking opportunities within the field. So I post multiple times a day and have seen a lot of cool job opportunities come through there. So if you're looking for work, or if you're looking to hire someone in your private practice, feel free to shoot me a message and I can post that for you. But it's just a kind of a cool way to network. All right, I'm going to just make sure that I can see the chat here. Oh. 1 second. All right, great. Okay, so the learning objectives for today's talk, 3 things. One is we're going to understand or learn why LinkedIn is a useful place to grow your referral pipeline. And so this is thinking about like, okay, you're at the start of maybe you have a private practice already and you're looking to build up your referral pipeline, or maybe you're just starting out in private practice and you kind of have already understood how important gaining referrals is. So really understanding why LinkedIn can be a useful place to grow that referral pipeline. And then secondly, learn. So learning the LinkedIn growth framework, which is a framework that I use in my course and with my clients to show you how you can actually use LinkedIn to increase those referrals. So you're going to understand why it's important. Then you're going to learn how the framework works. And then lastly, I want you to take some action either during this talk or after this talk to take action on the LinkedIn platform to start putting those tools in place to start using LinkedIn as a place for referrals. So I'd love to hear from you in the chat. How active are you on LinkedIn? And there's no judgment here. This is just, a conversation builder. So is it daily, weekly, monthly, or hardly ever? Ooh, and I just got some chats. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Okay, daily, hardly ever, weekly, 4 times a week, monthly. All right, so we have a good mix. Yeah, someone mentioned weekly, but they have a free account, and so that's a good thing for me to point out. Is all of my tips in this presentation and in my course are all using the free account. I think that there are some things that premium can help you with, but you can really do. At least I find that I've been able to do everything that I need with the free account. And then another person asked, I'm going to try not to like go through all these questions at once, but they're just quick to answer. So would you explain referrals? Is it growing your connections? So growing your connections is definitely part of referrals. So a referral just means that someone, an allied professional, maybe a physician, a physical therapist, or, a mental health therapist is referring their patients to you. So they're telling their patient, maybe their patient says, oh, I'm looking for a dietitian, and the dietitian and that clinician says, oh, I know this great dietitian. And most likely, yes, you've built that connection through LinkedIn. Okay, cool. So there's no right or wrong frequency, I would say, to be on LinkedIn, but if you're going to use it to be a place where you're generating referrals for your business, I would say checking in a couple times a week to really kind of implement what I'm going to be talking about in this presentation is probably a good cadence. And I'll talk later in one of the sections about kind of how often I show up on LinkedIn. Um, and that might be a helpful metric. Okay, so kind of taking it up a level, starting with the why, right? Why does being on LinkedIn matter for dietitians? And the reason is that there are opportunities for dietitians, whether you're in private practice or not, for you to grow your career on LinkedIn. And here are kind of the top five that I see in the work that I do. So the first one is to land career opportunities. So this could mean that you are finding your next job through LinkedIn, whether that's you applying for the job through LinkedIn or leveraging your connections for the job. Or it could mean that, let's say you've decided to venture into freelance work and you're looking for side work on the platform. So that's kind of like the land career opportunities. Obviously, there are other examples of opportunities. It could be speaking engagements, it could be podcast guests, anything where you feel like you're advancing your career. LinkedIn is a great spot for that. Secondly, finding new clients. So today we're really honing in on that private practice, but obviously this can apply to any type of business model where you're pulling in clients. It could be that you have an online course that you're selling to your clients. It could be maybe that you sell group programs. Maybe you have clients for a freelance writing business that you have, something like that. So LinkedIn is really good for finding those clients and building those relationships with potential clients. Connecting with quality brands is another great example that I see a lot of some dietitians that are on LinkedIn doing. So that could be a media dietitian that's representing as a spokesperson. It could be that you are someone that wants to work with food brands on recipe development, that kind of thing. And then fourthly is leading conversations. And we'll talk about this a bit later, but there's a lot of conversations happening about nutrition on LinkedIn. And I think if you haven't been on the LinkedIn platform in a while, you might be surprised with how much content there is actually about nutrition. And a lot of that is not what I'm seeing is that oftentimes it's not led by a dietitian. So there is definitely room for dietitian and true expert, whether it's a nutrition scientist or some other credentialed professional in nutrition, to really take the lead on that. And then showcasing your expertise, lastly. We all do a lot of work, whether it's in our 9 to 5 jobs or, in our business, and social proof goes a long way with finding clients. So, showcasing the work that you do, anything you've done in the community, or any kind of awards or testimonials or anything like that. LinkedIn is like the place to showcase your work, especially if you're like sort of uncomfortable about talking yourself up. LinkedIn is a great place because a lot of people are celebrating, work milestones. So it's just sort of a natural thing to do. My forward button is not working. Okay. So I wanted just to clarify referral patterns on LinkedIn, and kind of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about this. So we're talking about sort of two things, right? We're talking about business to consumer. So using LinkedIn to directly pull clients into your business. And that's the business to consumer side. And I think that there is a limiting belief that we can't use LinkedIn to directly speak to clients for, our M&T business or our nutrition counseling business. But consumers are on LinkedIn looking for providers. Maybe they're not necessarily thinking, oh, I'm going to find my dietitian on LinkedIn. But again, going back to my earlier slide, they are on LinkedIn is a social media platform, so they are consuming content. And if there's any sort of bug in their back of their brain that they're looking for a dietitian, they might reach out to you. And this has happened to me, and it's happened to other dietitians that I work with. So it's kind of this B2C thing that we have going on. And then we've got the B2B. And the B2B, or business to business, is really you as the leader of your nutrition private practice connecting and engaging with allied providers. So let's just use this example. Let's say you work in the eating disorder field, and your B2B might be with mental health therapists that could refer their patients to you. And so then what you do when you have the B2B, that leads to the B2C, right? Because you're having relationships now with referring allied providers who can then connect you to their larger patient population. So I do want to just throw out a couple of gentle reminders about social media. I think LinkedIn is the best platform, but at the end of the day, it is social media, and there are a couple of things to keep in mind. Number one, remember that LinkedIn is one tool in your marketing toolkit. It doesn't take the place of, if you're snail mailing, referral forms to physicians, and that's working really well for you, right? It's not going to replace that, but it's going to be something that can enhance your practice, right? Your marketing tool. So it's one tool in your toolkit, albeit a strong tool. It is a tool. Um, and then social media, I think it's always important to remember social media is rented space. So to the extent possible, you want to take the conversations that you're having on LinkedIn, with people in your direct messages or someone that's opted into your email list off the platform, right? Because tomorrow, let's say, we always use this example like with Instagram, if they change their platform or if they change their algorithm, you would no longer have access to those followers, right? Or not as easy access. You don't have that direct connection to them. So use LinkedIn to connect directly with people to then leverage those relationships. And that's really what LinkedIn is for. And then lastly, boundaries are important. So just like any other platform, there are, trolls on LinkedIn. I don't personally, and at this time, I don't think it's as bad. But there are definitely trolls out there. There's people spreading misinformation about nutrition. So, you just have to kind of keep those reminders up of how much of that can you take, right? How much time do you have to spend on the platform, right? If you own a business or you're having multiple side hustles going on, how much time do you really have? So you have to be clear with the boundaries of sort of any negative comments that you might get and how you're going to handle that. And then what really are your time parameters when it comes to using social media? I like to put that out there because I've really chosen to hone in on LinkedIn because I think for me, it's the most efficient and effective use of my social media budget, that time budget that I have, because I really do try to be intentional with how much time I spend online. So I always like to include that. All right. So let's talk about the LinkedIn growth framework. And this is a framework that I've tweaked over the years. It's really the core framework that I teach in my course. And it's really cool because the process itself applies to a lot of different endeavors that dietitians might be doing in their careers. So again, today we're talking about using LinkedIn to build a referral pipeline, using this framework, but it can be applied to different objectives that you might have throughout your career as a dietitian or in your business, right? You might have multiple things that you're doing in your business. And actually, let me just quickly go back to this. So I'm going to talk about it kind of like it's steps, but like step one, step two. But what you can kind of see here, my hope is that you can see that it's cyclical, right? And I did that intentionally because I want you to know that at any point you can go back to further clarify what you're doing. You can re-communicate something. So it's always important to understand that this is something that's iterative. Your presence on the platform is not set in stone. And I'll show you as we move forward a place where I'm always updating the language of my profile because things change. I might decide to word something differently, or I might open my practice up to include a different type of client. So it's always helpful to know that you can always kind of go back, and it's iterative. It's meant to be a cycle. So the first step, for the starting point really, is to clarify. And here's where you're going to be clear about what makes your practice and your business unique. So you may have done a little bit of this work already, or a lot of bit of this work when you opened up your business. Maybe you've done some of this because you have a website and you had to kind of figure out how to communicate what you were doing. But I think when you're getting started on LinkedIn and thinking about LinkedIn as a tool to build your business, it's always helpful, even if you've done this work, it's always helpful to just take a look at that again. And what I'll talk about later is how to make sure that that's incorporated into your presence on the platform. So you want to be clear about what makes you unique. And as I said at the beginning of the talk, I want you to take action from this presentation, right? And so your action step here in this clarify section is to start thinking about what it is that your practice does that makes you unique. And actually, I would love for you, if you're having thoughts, like if something popped into your head, share that in the chat. I would love to hear that. But some ideas to think about are, what conditions do you treat, and do you have a clinical niche? Like for me, my clinical niche is renal, which honestly is almost not even niched enough. That's where I am in my business, so that's what I lead with. But any kind of conditions or specialties, you really, especially if you are in that sort of traditional private practice where your main referral source might be an MD or a physician, you really want to make sure you're clear on what your clinical specialty is. What kind of appointments do you offer? Do you have a brick and mortar? Do you have telehealth? Do you have both? Social factors. So, anything that might be kind of relevant to your ideal client. So, let's say you work with busy working parents, that kind of thing. You want to be telling your client's story throughout your LinkedIn profile. So when a referring provider or somebody sees your profile, they know, okay, I'm in the right place. This is a dietitian for me. And then how do people access your services? Are you private pay? Do you accept insurance? What is your approach to nutrition? Are you a non-diet dietitian? Are you, a pediatric dietitian? There's so many different approaches, right? Are you a ketogenic dietitian for CKD? There's so many different approaches to nutrition, and I think it's helpful definitely for you to include your unique approach to nutrition in your profile, and any additional services you offer that might generate income in your business. So one really common one that I see a lot of dietitians that have been in private practice for some time, they do a lot of one-on-one work. Maybe they have a group program, but what they really want to do is add another revenue stream into their business, and their thought is corporate wellness. I want to do corporate wellness. So make sure that if that's something that you want to do, that's clear in your profile, that is something that you offer. Okay, I don't see any comments in the chat. So, all right, so we'll move on. Okay, so that's your action step. Oh, renal. All right, renal and sports. Nice. Yeah, and that's a cool, just as one renal dietitian to another. I think that's a really cool intersection too. I think they're, athletic performance for people living with CKD is pretty cool. A lot of family stuff. Yeah. Yep. Cool. So your action step here is I want you to start thinking about some of those things, jot them down, and then we're going to use that information in the next steps. Okay. So the next step, so you've clarified, and this is something you're doing regardless as a business owner, right? You're always thinking about how can I be as clear as possible about what it is that I do so that person that I need to pay me can easily find me and know that I'm the right person. I know that I'm the right dietitian for them. So once you've thought through that, you're going to start communicating that. And the way you communicate that on LinkedIn is through your profile. And I call this optimizing your profile. But basically, that means setting up your profile so that you can help LinkedIn help you find the right people find you. Um, And I go way into depth in this in my course. This is just like a quick overview. But again, I want to give you valuable information. But my point is that in my course, there's a whole module on this. But it's kind of breaks down into like a 5-step framework. So the first thing is you're going to identify and infuse keywords. And that sounds really fancy, but basically what that means is you want to think about what it is that you want to be known for and found for on LinkedIn. And those are your keywords. So maybe it's renal dietitian for athletes or dietitian for busy working families, right? All of those things that you're using to clarify what it is that you do are keywords that you want to incorporate throughout your LinkedIn profile. And the reason you want to do that is because you want to, for when somebody searches for dietitian, you want, or whatever search term, you want to show up in the top of those search results. So you want to make sure that you're being really clear about what it is that you want to be found for and how you're incorporating those into your profile. And I think, step 2 here, it's always important to consider aesthetics, right? So your LinkedIn profile, you may have a website for your business, but one thing that is cool about LinkedIn is that it can, especially when you're starting out, it can actually serve as a website for you because I won't get too much into this, kind of like its own presentation, but Google search does index LinkedIn profiles. So if someone Googles your name or dietitian, some search terms, it will show up. Your LinkedIn profile will show up in those Google search results. So think of it as your website or an extension of your website. And you want it to look nice, right? Just like you think about your brand colors or your logo, use that same aesthetic lens or have someone help you use that same aesthetic lens to make sure that your LinkedIn profile looks nice and professional. And nice means, a banner it on that space where you can put a banner. It means a up to date, clear photo of you, right? And two, when you list your experience, right, you don't want it to be a jumble of words. You want it to be bulleted out so people can quickly look through your profile, find the information that they need, and then contact you. And then thirdly, optimizing your profile too is helping people see the human behind your profile. So you want to tell your story, right? We talked earlier about making sure that you showcase your approach to nutrition in your LinkedIn profile. And a great way to do this is sharing your story. Why are you passionate about being a renal dietitian for athletes? Why are you passionate about being a dietitian for busy working families, right? And so those things can be incorporated in that about section in your profile and in other places in your profile as well. Um, and then you want to showcase relevant experience in your profile. You don't want, you may have had tons of wonderful experience in your career, and I hope that you have. But what you have to remember is that you're talking about your private practice right now, right? So you are messaging a doctor, right? And you want them to quickly see what you think might be important to them. So that might be, what insurances do you accept? That might be, where did you go to school? What additional certifications do you have? So you really want to make sure that you're tailoring your LinkedIn to the experience that, or the business that you need now. And then lastly, you want to highlight your skills. So in each experience section, right, where like you put your previous jobs and you list everything that you did in that job, LinkedIn, at least at this point in 2024, LinkedIn will prompt you to include skills related to that role that you had. So they actually have quite a lot of skills that relate to dietitians. I think there's definitely medical nutrition therapy, there's parenteral nutrition, there's enteral nutrition. So a lot of stuff that we do. There's nutrition communication. Um, Make sure you're including that because people can find you based on those skills. So if you have like someone in your community looking for someone to do culinary workshops, and that's something that you do, they can find you because you've added that skill to your profile. So definitely take the time to do that. So here's your action step. I want you to, again, go back to part one, thinking about clarifying what it is that you do, who do you serve, and start to infuse those keywords into strategic places in your profile. So that's your headline. The headline is where it says your name and all of the text underneath. That's a really search optimized area of the LinkedIn platform. Your about section, that's at the top. They've actually recently moved that up in the profile, which tells you that that's an important spot. There's a featured section. So the featured section is really cool. It's almost like a bulletin board kind of, where you can pin recent, I think it should be recent, but things that maybe you've been featured in, like literally featured section, right? So you've been a guest on a podcast, you've been quoted in the media, that kind of thing. So it really just sort of ups your social proof. It's a great place for like a really awesome testimonial that you got from a client. And then your experience section, again, going back to that idea of LinkedIn sort of feeding you these ideas for skills. If you're a dietitian in private practice that's doing M&T every day, make sure that that's one of your skills, nutrition counseling, etc. So your action step is going to take those keywords and start taking a look at your profile and seeing like, okay, where are my opportunities to really tell a better story about what it is that I want to be known for and found for. And again, that's how when you reach out to somebody to say, hey, I'm open for referrals, they're not going to have to do a lot of work because they're going to see your profile and know immediately what you do and who you serve. And I did want to mention something here too. So one part of optimizing your profile, and that's like a whole presentation in itself, which is the presentation that I'm giving at the Dietitian Money Conference, is how to create a business page on LinkedIn. So right now we're talking about your personal profile, but you'd have the option to create a business page. And you don't have to have like any business volume or formal LLC, or you don't even have to have something for sale. You could have like a business page for a podcast or, your blog or something like that. So I'm going to walk you through at this conference how to set up a business page because there is some nuance to it. So if you want to join that, let me know. I'll send out the affiliate link. It's a paid affiliate link, so I do earn a small commission if you use my link to register. And if you use my link to register, you'll be automatically signed up for a workshop, a live workshop that I'm doing where I'm going to review people's LinkedIn profile on the spot live. So I'll send out the link for that afterwards. But I'm mentioning it here because my point is that setting up a business page for your business on LinkedIn is also a great way to optimize your profile for referrals. Okay, so we've talked about clarify, we've talked about community. So you say, okay, I've thought about what I do, this is what I do. I've communicated it to the world through my LinkedIn profile. Now I want to start building my network. And in my opinion, building your network is probably the most important step here. LinkedIn is designed to be a networking platform. And, one thing I like to say, and I cringe a little when I say it, but your network is almost more powerful than your credentials, right? And I cringe because we work so hard for our credentials. We're defending our credentials to non-credentialed individuals, giving nutrition information. But the truth is that once you get those credentials, which are incredible, you have to take those credentials and plug them into something to be able to achieve your career goals. And that something, right, is your network. And your network is really what's going to help you find those cool opportunities and find those people that are going to become collaborators and colleagues, right? If you're watching this right now and you're in private practice, you know that being in private practice can sometimes be isolating, right? You don't have, unless you have a group practice, or a lot of contractors working for you or something, there is this feeling of like, well, I don't have any coworkers, right? So your network can really also just quite frankly be that like social piece to your career that can add value and joy to a career, and of course connect you to opportunities. So here in this phase of our growth framework, we're going to be talking about how to grow your network on LinkedIn. Specific, obviously, to referrals, right? Because that's what we're talking about today. So there's three main things to consider when you're thinking about how do I use my network to build my referral pipeline for my private practice. The first thing, and it's so obvious, but it's missed often, is to let your current network know you're open to referrals, right? So you can do this in a couple of ways. You can create a series of posts where you say, hey, I just opened my practice. I think I saw someone on the call who was on this call that recently just said, "Hey, just opened my practice, CKD. I'm a dialysis dietitian, bringing that experience into my private practice." So announcing essentially to the world, "Hey, I'm open for business," and then taking that to the next level and getting into your direct messages on LinkedIn and messaging people directly and saying, just in case you missed my post, I am accepting referrals. I would love for you to refer your patients to me, right? Let's say, and this can work with dietitians, this can work with allied providers. Let's use the example of dietitian to dietitian communication. So let's say you are a pediatric dietitian, but you want to start to, increase your, eating disorder profile. So let's say you reach out to an eating disorder dietitian and you say, hey, you know what, I'm a pediatric dietitian. If you have pediatric patients that have EDs and you're not super comfortable working with them, please feel free to refer them to me. It depends on, kind of how you like to talk to other people when it comes to promoting yourself. Maybe that feels a little bit aggressive. Maybe that feels great to you. So you have to kind of start to connect with people, which is step two, that are allied and complementary. Start engaging with their content, and then send them messages and say, listen, we have similar but different enough business that I think I can help you with referrals, and I think you can help me with referrals. So that's kind of a dietitian to dietitian example. I've had, because I do a plant forward approach to kidney disease, I follow and I'm connected with a lot of plant-based dietitians. And I've had a couple dietitians refer to me that were CKD patients that they thought, you know what, this is just not my specialty. Let me refer them to Christiana. So it definitely happens. So again, announcing that you're open for referrals repeatedly. You know, I always say, like, if you're not sick of hearing yourself talk about your business, then you're not talking about your business enough. So letting the world know that this is what you do and you're accepting referrals. And then secondly, sending connection requests. So if you are an insurance-based private practice, a great person to connect with are people in benefits, because in benefits, they know what insurance plan that company has. And they might be receptive to some education from you about what plans actually cover when it comes to nutrition counseling. Like, if you're in private practice, you know that a lot of people are, first of all, surprised that dietitians can even accept insurance, and are definitely open to understanding. And obviously each plan differs, but I think connecting with people and benefits or human resources, personnel, whatever you want to call it, is a great first step. And I always recommend this for people that want to increase their revenue stream with corporate wellness events. You know, hey, I want to speak at a local company. Like, who do I talk to? Well, usually it's somebody in benefits or HR that's planning the wellness program for the whole company, and they can decide where you might fit into that. So definitely thinking strategically about who you want to send your connection requests to get those referrals into your business in a way that makes sense for you. And then lastly, following relevant people and pages. So if you are in, the cardiac space, you're following those large industry companies, the American Heart Association, et cetera, maybe physicians within the field, you're following them, or better yet, you're connected to them and you are engaging with their content so that the people that are reading their content sees your name, hey, cardiac dietitian, coming up in the comments section. So if you are wondering, like, okay, how do I get started building my network? A great place to do this on the LinkedIn app is in the people you may know section. And I've screenshotted a couple of examples here. The people you may know section is really cool because LinkedIn breaks it down into how you might know these people. So it could be geographic. It could be at a company that you both work at. It could be within a field. Like, I get, my people you may know is a lot of dietitians. And so you can go in there and start to see, oh yeah, you know what, that person would be good to connect with in my area, or that person at this organization that I, used to work at, right? If you're in private practice, employee, self-employed, let me kind of connect with them. Maybe there's something there. So your action step here is to send a connection invite, and you can practice this by connecting with me. I think there's some intimidation around this, some limiting beliefs about how to send a connection invite. And here's what I'll tell you. So LinkedIn gives you the option to add a note when you send a connection invite. And that's basically just saying, like, here, you can see it right on the screen here. It rather than just sending them the connection invite and they have to kind of figure out, like, okay, why is this person connecting with me? You can give them that context. I don't always attach a note because I feel as though if my LinkedIn profile is optimized enough and it's super clear what I do, I don't necessarily need to send a note. I could just send a connection invite, and then when that person accepts, I'll be able to direct message them and continue the conversation, start or continue the conversation from there. I think there are times where it makes sense to send a connection invite, if it's somebody that you really want to pitch yourself to. Let's using that like HR person to be their wellness speaker for the month. I think that's kind of an appropriate time to use that connection, that ability to send a personalized note. And again, just like um, any sort of pitching yourself, it's really up to you how comfortable you are with pitching yourself and how you feel about talking about yourself. You might want to take a more passive approach and just introduce yourself first, right? And kind of let the conversation marinate a little bit, or just go right into pitching them. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, as long as what you're pitching them like makes sense, which I know you would do, but you'll start to see like the more time you spend on LinkedIn, like sometimes you do get some kind of junk mail. Like there's a lot of people saying like, oh, I have this AI thing. I'm like, well, I don't use AI in my business. Um, so send an invite, find if you want to do the note, find common ground, remind them how they know you, if you do know them, and or say something genuinely complimentary. And that usually gets a connection back. And if they don't connect back with you, just move on to the next person. It's nothing personal. Some people like to keep their connections, their network really small, and that is fine. So that's your action step here. Send me a connection invite to practice that process. And we're going to briefly talk about create. So that's the next step in our framework, right? So why are we creating content on LinkedIn? And part of it's going back to when someone, a decision maker, an allied provider, right, comes to your profile, you want them to see that you are an expert in whatever your niche within nutrition is. Not only that, but just generally speaking, LinkedIn is a great place to create content. It has 1 billion users. 30% of US adults use LinkedIn, but only a small percentage of them actually post on LinkedIn. So that means that you can really become a prominent voice within your niche, within nutrition, because there's probably not that many people talking about it yet. So it is kind of an exciting opportunity. And what type of content does really well on LinkedIn? Each social media platform has a little bit of their own, way of doing things. Um, the LinkedIn algorithm isn't the kind of platform where things go viral just for the sake of going viral. The LinkedIn algorithm values knowledge and advice, right? And so that's the kind of content that does well, regardless of what the format of that content is, whether it's a post or a video. Um, and what does that kind of mean, right? What does it mean? When the LinkedIn machine learning algorithm reads for knowledge and advice, like what is it looking for? So a couple things. That the content has a distinct audience. So that means when you're creating content, you are talking to a specific person. And that I think goes all the way back to that clarify, where it's important for you to understand, or at least starting to take steps to understand who your ideal client is and who you serve, because that's who you want to be talking to on LinkedIn. And you are writing from your core subject area. So again, you are optimizing your profile. You're telling LinkedIn through your profile, I'm an expert in cardiac nutrition. And so when you create a post about cardiac nutrition, LinkedIn is like, oh yeah, that makes sense, because that person is showing me through their profile and through their skills that they are an expert in this. And then, of course, the post, everyone wants a ton of meaningful comments on all of their content. But, not everything you post is going to be a home run, right? But obviously, the more comments there are, the more LinkedIn is going to show that content to new people that aren't yet following you, because they're seeing that people are engaging with it. And then lastly, the post has perspective, right? So it's not written by a machine. It has character. It's giving people something to think about. And usually that's measured by people commenting or reposting it or sharing it to their audience. So here's your action step. I want you to post something on LinkedIn, but I want you to do it in the easiest possible way. And this is called repost with share your thoughts. And this is cool because this is something that's, I believe, unique to LinkedIn. So if you follow, let's say, we use that example of being a cardiac dietitian and following the American Heart Association, right? So let's say the American Heart Association shares, their fall recipe guide or something like that. You can share that, right? You can reshare that and then say, here's why, here's these amazing recipes, and here's why I love these recipes for busy working parents that are, trying to lower their cholesterol. So you're showing that you are sharing something of importance, you're talking about yourself as an expert, and you're then connecting it to an audience that you serve. What's really cool about LinkedIn is that you can schedule the content in the app itself. So if you see something you like, you can save it. And then you can go back to it later when you have time to sit down. And then you could either share it at that point, or you could schedule them. I think you can schedule things up to 3 months in advance. So that's your action step here. I want you to find something that you like from someone that you're following that relates to what you're doing in your business, repost it with share your thoughts. All right, and so we're at the final step within our LinkedIn growth framework. And this is what I call correct. And I needed a C, so I called it correct. Essentially, it's really about measuring and tracking your impact on the platform so that all of that work that you've done to clarify, communicate, curate, and create, you know that those steps that you're taking are actually helping you, gain benefit from the time that you're spending on the platform. And so, why should you measure your impact, right? Because your time is valuable. Not only, you might be a one person show, right? So you are seeing patients, you're processing payments, you're doing everything in your business, right? So you want to make sure again that the actions that you're taking are having as much of an impact as possible. So time management, and then lastly, achieving your goals, right? Like let's say you set a goal for yourself with LinkedIn that you want to increase your followership by XYZ, etc. You want to make sure that what you're doing is actually leading to those goals. And so there's two main ways to measure your impact on the LinkedIn platform. The first is through analytics, and those can be analytics that are connected either to both to your profile or your business page if you have one. And those analytics come from LinkedIn. So it's things like impressions, reshares, comments, or if you have a social media scheduler or something, a lot of times those will also track your analytics. But what I think is also important to include, in addition to like the vanity metrics, are metrics that are defined by you, that are aligned with your goals. So I'll give you a couple of examples. Like one thing I've been really successful with is using LinkedIn to find opportunities for speaking engagements for myself. So mostly I do speak about renal nutrition, and that was something that I found through LinkedIn, Plant Forward Nutrition. I had a great opportunity. It was like an inbound lead. Someone said they were looking for a speaker about Plant Forward Nutrition for a commodity board to do like a culinary presentation. And they reached out to me, and it was someone that it wasn't directly through email, and it was someone that I knew his name, but I didn't know him personally yet. And I said, how did you find me? And he said that someone that follows me on LinkedIn had recommended me as a speaker to this person. So I was like, wow, that really gave me a confidence boost on my actions on the platform. So it's those things, right? Those kinds of things that the LinkedIn platform can never capture because they're your business goals. But it's definitely important to, any opportunity you have, any client you have, right? You want to track where that business is coming from. So your action step here, as you're thinking about, what you're going to do with your business on LinkedIn, as you're going through those steps, always keep in mind, how do you define success for yourself, and consider that in your approach to LinkedIn. So in conclusion, LinkedIn is a powerful, powerful place for all dietitians, but especially private practice dietitians, to grow your referral pipeline, right? It can be a great opportunity in your toolkit for marketing your business. And so the takeaway from this presentation is start to spend some time thinking about what your goals on the platform, your goals for your time spent on the platform, and then start to execute, clarify, communicate, curate, create, and correct. And then lastly, just really quick, I'll send this out in an email too. I do have a course on LinkedIn. It's a self-paced online course specifically for dietitians and credentialed nutrition professionals called Networking for Nutrition Professionals. For this presentation, I'm offering 10% off the course. It's normally $147, so that's 10% off that. If you use that promo code by Monday, September 9th, you get that 10% off, and it's worth 10.25 CEUs. So a fun and I think very useful way to get your CEUs if you are a business owner. So thank you for joining me today. I know we have like 5 minutes left, so I'm going to open up the chat, or I'm going to have you, if you have any questions, pop those into the chat. There we go. Someone asked, could we please receive this recording? Yes, I'll send out the recording to everyone that registered. All right, well, I'm not seeing any questions come through the chat. Oh, here we go. Do I recommend that someone just starting a business should have a business page for their private practice? Yes, I do. There's a few reasons, and in my talk at the Dietitian Money Conference, I lay out like almost like a manifesto, I would say, for why private practice dietitians should have a LinkedIn profile. But yes, I think it really professionalizes your business, especially when you are reaching out to allied providers. You can encourage them to follow your business page, just like someone can follow a Facebook page, and you can post content to that page. And I think it really professionalizes your look, and gives people a place on LinkedIn to find your business, apart from in your experience section. And it kind of, in a way, keeps your voice, you as an individual, a little bit separate from your business, in case you, like for me, for example, I use my personal profile to talk about what I do for how dietitians work and for my LinkedIn course. And then my business page is for my renal nutrition practice. So if you're someone that kind of has a lot of things going on too, it can be a really helpful way to have different voices on the platform. So definitely recommend that. When would you recommend generating a website? That's a good question. I mean, I think if you are in private practice and you're seeing people virtually, it's helpful to have a place where they can go to book an appointment. Maybe your EMR does that. Like if you have, I think, Simple Practice and I use Practice Better, but I think they both have an ability to make a very simple website. But I think as soon as you, honestly, and I don't want to add anything else to your plate, but as soon as you open your business, I think it is helpful to have a very simple website, even if it doesn't have a whole lot on it other than kind of an about you page. A lot of some dietitians in private practice will use their website. They'll create a blog on their website and generate content, like articles or videos around their clients' pain points. So for you, it would be, something renal related, right? And maybe common questions that your clients are asking. You could create an article, and then when someone Googles, how much potassium can I have today? You come up and they see that you are a dietitian in private practice. Um, so William, I would say, as soon as you have the bandwidth, I would make a website. When utilizing a business LinkedIn page, is it best to target content to your ideal client or providers that could be referring? I would say both. I think, Eliza, there is a way to do that. And I think you can kind of tweak it. So I think you use your business page to really talk about the work that it is that you're doing in your business. So the nuts and bolts, like do you take insurance? Some testimonials, right? That's something that would appeal to both the client and someone that would want to refer to you. Any educational content, because educational content might impress a physician or somebody that would refer to you, and it would also speak to the ideal client. And then I think too, you can use your direct messaging also really well to talk to the allied providers in more of a provider to provider way, saying, I help clients with this condition. Maybe you could speak a little bit more medically or kind of in that jargon. Rather than more of that public facing content on your page. So I would say both, just being kind of thoughtful about how you do it. So basic question. So I need a website to have basic question. So I need a website to have people see me first on LinkedIn and then people come to my page. No, you don't need a website. To have a LinkedIn. Website is just another thing, another place that you can have on the internet. But I think what I was trying to communicate is that if you don't have a website, having a LinkedIn page is really helpful for people to be able to find you online. So you don't need to have a website to have a LinkedIn page. If you do have a website, definitely include it on your LinkedIn, but it's not a requirement. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, and too, I think, with the business page, you just want to be clear on that too. You don't have to like have an LLC or have any true formal business. Really, the business page can be for any offer that you have to somebody. So I always think a great idea, like, is if you have a podcast, right? And that's not necessarily, I mean, I hope eventually you're generating ad revenue, but to start, you're not really going to be generating much income. But so it's a free offer for somebody, but it's still something that you're kind of separating out from your profile and saying, this is the business page for my podcast. So anyway, thank you so much, everybody, for joining me today. This was a great conversation. I will be sure to send out the replay as well as a couple of other links today. And again, if you do want to sign up for my course, you get that 10% off from today until Monday. So, all right. Well, I hope to talk to everyone, and I'll see you on LinkedIn. Take care.